If I could focus on British Steel, we've seen in the news that the Port Talbot steel plant is in trouble. And it's been suggested that, in fact, in some circles, that we should even think about renationalising British Steel. I know that certain people are very keen on this. I would be less keen, I have to say. I would think that the market should decide. But hypothetically, let's go with the argument that we should perhaps renationalise British Steel. But even if we wanted to do that, the EU wouldn't let us. And also, the EU has failed to stop China dumping cheap steel on us when it applies tariffs on our high-technology steel produced at Port Talbot. So maybe I could ask each of the panellists in turn, what's your view? Can the British steel industry really survive with any government intervention when Britain is part of the European Union? Can I start with Vernon?
Well, of course it can, and it's interesting when you look at the steel industry in other countries in Europe, as indeed many other examples. If you look at Germany or Italy or Netherlands, or those people, they've had no difficulty in protecting their steel industries. And indeed, I would see it as a failure of the UK government rather than as a failure of the European Union to protect the steel industry. The European Union tried to increase tariffs on Chinese steel. The UK government actually blocked an increase in tariffs on that. So, as I say, I think we should look closer to home for the problem with respect to the steel industry. I think also the fact of the matter is, you asked about nationalisation, Jeff. I think the crucial thing for the steel industry is for it to have a period of time, a transition, to move from where it is to where we want it, where it needs to be. And it may be in that period of time, in that transition, that the state having a role with respect to the British steel industry is something that would be absolutely crucial and can do. Other countries do it. The UK government should do it. And at the end of the day, it's about protecting our manufacturing bases. Service industry, as people in the financial services will know, services are really important, but also making things is really important. The UK has a proud manufacturing tradition, and we should protect that. And it's a failure of the UK government that we are where we are with the steel industry in this country, rather than a failure of the European Union.
Okay, Owen?
Well, I'm not in favour of increasing tariffs. I'm in favour of free trade, but I'm in favour of giving our steel workers a fair chance. Actually, they're trying to make steel with both hands tied behind their back because of European targets on CO2, which we have huge enthusiasm, starting with Ed Miliband's Climate Change Act, racked up the cost of energy. And anyone who's seen all the photographs must understand that steel consumes vast amounts of energy. And what has happened by driving up the cost of energy, we've driven businesses abroad. So there was a very good business at Linemouth producing aluminium, where you need electrolysis, huge amounts of energy. That plant has closed down, Northumberland workers out of a job, and what's happened, exactly the same amount of aluminium is being made in Canada by the same process, but with cheaper energy. So the first thing we should look at is the European problem of these environmental targets, driven by the climate change agenda, of which we are the most enthusiastic supporters. And what's happened is you have a European envelope for reductions. So if we go further than all our other European competitors, we actually let them off the hook. We allow the Germans and the Dutch and the Belgians to carry on producing steel and not reducing their CO2 as we have done. So there are areas where we are trapped by these European targets, and by being over-enthusiastic, we are making it extraordinarily difficult for our own steel workers, for whom I have huge sympathy.
John?
Well, I hate to disagree with a fellow Conservative, but the fact is it was your government that went along with ramping up the energy costs in this country in a way that has left us effectively with energy costs nearly twice those of the European average. And it's perfectly possible to create, to continue manufacturing steel on the continent. As I said, the Germans, the Italians are doing this, the Dutch. Yeah. The problem is homegrown. And I don't actually think that the answer is to nationalise, because there is actually overcapacity in steel, and that's likely to continue for a very long time. But if we are part of the EU market, we will be able to get high-quality steel for our manufacturing where we need it, and it's vital. You can't have a high-tech aviation industry or a motor car industry of any significance unless you've got access to steel. And if we were to operate a free trading policy, as Owen is advocating, we would go on seeking to have a manufacturing base without being able to have a secure steel supply in moments of crisis. We would be at the mercy of the Chinese. And that is the whole point. You need to have friends in this world because it is a very competitive and dangerous place.
Kate?
Well, I think 14 countries in the EU actually blocked the increase in tariffs. So even if the UK had gone along with it, it still wasn't going to happen. You know, the reality is we are part of the 28, and even if we want something very strongly, we can't get it. I think that there is definitely a need for our government to temporarily support in not necessarily the same way, but showing the same dedication and support for the steel industry that they did at some stage for the banking industry, which many of you here are obviously associated with. And I think that should happen. I do think there is a problem about the fact that China is just producing so much steel and has so much power that even the rest of the world uniting against them doesn't seem to be able to change it. But I think there's an absolute need to have a steel industry in this country, and the government must do something to actually make sure that in the meantime it doesn't have to close and people don't lose their jobs. But certainly being part of the EU would not, if we had not been part of the EU, we might have been able to use, not be hidebound by the state aid rules earlier and actually do something about it much earlier, instead of always feeling we can't do anything, we have to wait till everybody else kind of gets together, and you know how long it takes for anything to happen within the EU.